We've got Dr. Lowe here, a local audiologist as well as professor in the CSD program. Could you tell us your official title?
Yes, my name is Dr. Rebecca Lowe. I am a clinical assistant professor and the co-clinic director of the Speech and Hearing Center at the University of Mississippi.
Okay. Um, just getting started. When you were our age, did you have any, or how did you get to where you are today?
I took a sign language class probably when I was a second semester sophomore, and I was undecided liberal arts up until then. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. But when I took that sign language class, I fell in love with the deaf population and really wanted to do something else. So I went to my sign language instructor and said, "This is it, I want to do sign language." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do with sign language?" And I said, "I don't know. What can you do with sign language?" And he said, "Well, clearly you can work with the deaf population." And I said, "Well, that's what I want to do." And I said, "Where do I need to go to school? Can I go into like deaf ed here at Ole Miss?" And he said, "Well, do you want to teach history and math to deaf people?" And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, "Well, would you like to interpret for them? Like you could go to a doctor's office and tell them what the doctor said, etc." And I was like, nope, don't want to do that either. And he said, "Well, would you like to teach them language and work on their communication skills?" And I was like, "That's what I want to do." And he said, "You need to go into audiology." So I joined they had an audiology, undergrad program here, the same, and I went into audiology, and from there,
That's
it's
amazing.
history.
Whenever you were growing up, did any of your interests then build into your work now?
I've always loved sign language. So one of my babysitters knew sign language and taught me everything, and I tried to learn a little bit on my own and taught everybody that I knew sign language, whatever I learned. But um, and kids, I loved kids growing up too, and I babysat from knee high on up, and so those both helped in this career.
Whenever you were on this path, were you ever lost or didn't know where you wanted to go?
Yes, when I was in my first semester of graduate school and I had to take horrible anatomy and physiology and electrophys classes, I was like, "Oh no, I need to switch to speech. This I cannot stand this," and came home after my first semester of grad school and came up to my professors at my undergrad because I went off to Kansas State, and I said, "This is not for me." And they were like, "Oh, first semester grad school is always terrible. They're getting the basic classes out. Just go back for one more semester and see how you like it." And then I got into my disorder classes. I got into clinic, got to work with the hard of hearing people, and loved it. So
Was there ever a point where that light bulb went off and you realized this is what you wanted to do?
that sign language class when I was like a sophomore-ish in college.
Okay. Um, were there ever pressures from society telling you that you shouldn't really follow this path, and if so, how did you really shut out that noise?
Um, no, I don't know that I can think of anything off the hand offhand.
What obstacles have you overcome to get here today?
Obstacles. Grad school in and of itself. I can't tell you. There's no way to prepare you for graduate school, but it's probably the best maturing process too, as you learn to juggle various demands when everything is a priority, from classes to clinic to clients to parents and supervisors, and I also had a teaching assistantship, so I had my own classes that I was teaching, public speaking of all things, and sign language. But I think it's all a growing process.
To add on to that, do you have any keys to achieving your level of success and where you've really reached today?
I would say be passionate, because you're going to want to invest your energy, and the demands and the struggle doesn't matter if you're truly passionate about something and you make up your mind to do it. That's how the Olympic runners get to be Olympic runners. They didn't start out Olympic size, but they were passionate about running, and they kept doing and kept challenging themselves.
Now, over your career, how have you been able to keep a personal and professional balance in your
That's
life?
been very challenging, because I am one that will tend to stay on top of answer emails or something like that, and that really has been very challenging. And I actually took a little class on campus that they have on how to lead yourself rightly and learning to take breaks and give yourself the mental break, because a balance between personal and professional is extraordinarily critical in maintaining health throughout all realms of your life. So I would say it's making, for me, a mental time and a mental break. I'm shutting off work at this time, and I won't look at it for these couple of hours while I go do this, that, and the other, and it's staying in the moment with what I'm supposed to be doing.
As you look back on your first 10 years after college, what would you do differently?
Do you know, they were such growing years for me that I don't know that I would do necessarily anything different, because the mistakes that I made and those paths that I took that, you know, probably wish that I had not taken, formed who I was today to give me the knowledge that I have today.
Good. Can you describe a typical day in the life of your job?
Every day is different. So, I mean, Tuesday, Thursdays are my heavy teaching day and clinic day, but then Monday I'm typically, now this semester, I'm doing something phenomenal in clinic that I absolutely adore. I'm in the school systems with my clients. I'm observing, talking to their teachers, working with their teachers, seeing how they respond auditorily in the academic setting with kids around, a lot of talking, and able to make a difference there. And I even enjoy it in a different way. Well, no, I would say equal, but I enjoy it as much as I do hands-on therapy here in the classroom, because I feel like you can really see a difference that you're making in their day-to-day life. You know, 50 minutes in a sterile classroom is not the same as getting out into the homes or being with their peers and their teachers. It's a whole different ballgame.
What skills must someone absolutely have to succeed in your field?
Determination, I believe. Passion would be another one. And I think if you have determination and passion, you'll take the initiative to overcome the obstacles. Even if you don't feel like, oh, that person is smarter, she can grasp these concepts, I have to work harder. That's okay. If you have determination and passion for that, it doesn't matter if you work harder to get the same skill set. Plus that, you'll care about the client. And I think in and of anything that I could say, remember what the most important person in your life is at the moment you're in the therapy session or with that client, and it's that person right there.
How did you acquire the necessary skills and knowledge for this field?
Other than graduate school, I think my first few years outside of grad school was spent, they didn't teach me this in grad school, they didn't teach me this in grad school, because you can't really teach the people skills and interaction that you really truly have to have at the moment, because even when I was with a client in grad school, I had my supervisor right there. So if my supervisor saw me kind of getting stuck or struggling, boom, she would step in. When I'm on my own, it's like, I don't have anybody. What am I'm supposed to know this? You know, I did more studying outside in my first few years than I ever did in grad school, and I had to read all the time in grad school. But boy, I would go home and I would spend the night, you know, studying and trying to figure out, oh, what article, what can I do to help this client with this brand new cochlear implant? I don't know what to do next. They didn't teach me this in grad school.
If someone was to be you, do you suggest they follow your footsteps?
Well, now it depends on how much of me they want to be. You know, clearly, if they want to be all that I am, then yes, they would have to. Maybe they could learn it in an easier, softer way. But you know, that wasn't my thing. It would, if they want to work with deaf and hard of hearing children, they wouldn't necessarily have to go to audiology school like I did. Back in my day, the people that primarily did therapy with the audiology, with hard of hearing children were audiologists. They were the oral rehabilitationists. Now, speech language pathologists can also learn to do therapy. So they wouldn't necessarily have to follow the same track that I did.
If you had one piece of advice to give young people getting ready to jump into the real world, what would it be?
Okay, so does the real world mean a job where you're stuck at a place for at least 8 hours and you can't go to Walmart or go running in between? Or does the real world mean graduate school?
Maybe both.
Both. Maybe like do one.
Okay. If it's going to graduate school, whatever acceptance letter you got, the minute you get that acceptance letter, you write down how passionately ecstatic you are to get that acceptance letter, and you stick it on whatever bathroom mirror you have when you're in graduate school, and every morning get up when you brush your teeth, say, I chose this. I chose this. I remember how happy I was when I got here. I mean, okay. If you're going into the real world, let me tell you about the real world. Okay, all of a sudden they don't have spring breaks, and they don't have, 6 weeks for Christmas, and they don't have all this that we got used to in school. And it was hard for me to go and say, oh no, I'm stuck at work and I need to go to Walmart before I go home and my favorite show comes on this, or I need to make my exercise class at this time. How am I going to get to Walmart? It's learning to manage your time so that you can be stuck at work for 8 hours without leaving. So those would be the two big things.
Good. Can you tell us about a favorite moment or patient that stood out to you in your time as an audiologist?
I have so many, and I talk about them all the time in class. It's hard to choose one favorite one, but one of the ones that I work with, you can see her over hearing aids and everything, and now she's 15 years old in the schools, and I'm going into her school system and working with her there. She's has other challenges besides just the hearing loss, but we went from hearing aids to complete deafness. We did sign language for several years, then we got cochlear implants, so we've gone through every communication modality with her, and I've developed such a good relationship with her and then with her family that it's been a learning process for me, and she's taught me so much.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.